As temperatures heat up this summer, Sabit Abbasi of the DuPage County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management is here to talk to us about heat emergencies and what you need to do to be safe this summer. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd like to talk about, on the news you'll see heat warnings, heat watch. Can you kind of go over what the difference is between those?
Yes, so the National Weather Service pushes out a number of different watches and warnings depending on what the weather is, and particularly for the heat watches, for example, it's an excessive heat event in the next 12 to 48 hours. A heat warning / advisory is excessive heat event in the next 36 hours. So that, depending on what is issued, that should alarm and provide you a way of letting you know that what steps you need to take place. So, for example, if there's a heat watch issue within 12 to 48 hours, there's going to be extreme heat, then you can take certain steps, as opposed to if there's a heat advisory issued, then you could take other steps. So that's kind of what helps with knowing the difference between those two.
Okay, now I think a lot of, when it comes to heat emergencies and extreme heat conditions, a lot of it is probably common sense. Most people would figure out, go somewhere cool and things like that, drink a lot of water. What are some things that people do not think of?
So one of the things that people do not think of is, avoiding drinks that contain caffeine or alcohol, because they tend to make things worse for the person. The other thing is cars. If you are going grocery shopping, maybe plan to do that during the part of the day where it's a little bit cooler rather than the part of the day where it's really hot, because temperatures in the car could rise really quickly and it could get really hot in the car. So those are the types of things to consider. And then also pets. If you've got pets, then think about them, whether or not they should be out in the sun or outside at certain times of the day. And that's why the heat watches and heat warnings and advisories help out, is for you to be able to plan for those things. If you're going out shopping or if there's a game that's being played, then maybe taking a look at that. Is that really necessary at this time?
Okay, now in terms of, you've talked on various programs about having a kit for just about any emergency. Would this come into play if there's a power outage and there's extreme heat? Absolutely.
Now, an emergency supply kit is absolutely necessary no matter what the emergency is. But the neat thing about it is that it's customizable. So depending on the type of emergency and the type of your family needs, you can customize it. So for example, in my car, because of the temperatures being so hot, I've got a cooler in there with extra water and also those freezer packs. And that's something to consider. If it's going to be really hot, maybe getting those and putting the water, because you don't want the water bottle just sitting in the trunk of your car. So things of that nature. When the heat is there, it's really hot, maybe look at the items that are in your emergency supply kit. Are they going to melt? And what are other things you may want to put in your emergency supply kit because of heat-related temperatures?
Now, it's been about 20 years since there was a major catastrophe with heat in Chicago. I think more than 700 people died in 1995. What have agencies like yours learned from that? What do they do differently?
It's interesting. Each year when the temperatures get really hot, there's something that we always learn. And that incident in particular, I'm sure there were many lessons learned. One of the things that we've identified, and we work with our community services from DuPage County Community Services, is identifying cooling centers in the county, so that if a need arises where we need to activate a cooling center, or if residents need to go to a cooling center, the police departments, the fire departments, as well as the residents have access to the list of cooling centers. And so it's a good practice to go take a look at that list and see all the different cooling centers in your neighborhood. So if something were to happen, if it's an extended power outage because many people are using their AC and what have you, you at least know where the cooling centers are. The other thing is understanding that the cooling centers may not be open for that time. Some cooling centers are only open during large-scale incidents. So it's important for you to be able to look at it and identify it. And it could be as simple as identifying some of the libraries, movie theaters, and different types of places where you could go spend some time away from the heat.
Okay, now you talked a little bit about vehicle safety. Can you go more into pet safety? What are some things that you should do to make sure that your pet is safe?
Yeah, so, we don't wear fur coats during the summer, but pets do wear them. So, I mean, most of the, like for example, dogs have fur coats, so they get really hot. So it's really important to consider their needs during emergencies. Maybe making sure you provide them extra water during the summer, especially if they're outside, playing or something. They have extra water so that they have extra water for them. And the other thing is not leaving them inside the car. I've got a graphic here that shows that outside, if the outside temperature is 80 degrees, in 20 minutes, the inside temperature for the car could go up to 109 degrees. In 40 minutes, it could go to 118 degrees. And in 60 minutes, it could go to 123 degrees. And this is according to the Centers for Disease Control. And this information, when you start to think about those things, imagining pets in your car, as well as having your children in the car, the temperatures rise up really quickly. So start, even if you have to go to the store, maybe take the pet with you. Don't leave them in the car just even for those couple of minutes. Because as you saw, the temperatures rise really quickly. And not to mention the humidity that could be a factor. This is just the regular temperature that's out there, but the heat indices and all of that. Okay.
In terms of heat illness, can you talk about what are some of the warning signs that you should seek help, or that something may be going on related to that heat emergency?
There are a number of symptoms that that you can be aware of. So, for example, there could be cramps, rapid pulse, heavy sweating, and just dehydration. So if you're thirsty, at that point your body's already telling you that you are thirsty. So maybe before even you get to the point where you are thirsty and your throat becomes dry, throughout the day drinking sips of water. That way you don't get to a point where you start feeling that. And you can start seeing people who are heavily sweating, especially if they're playing sports. They're perspiring and all of that. So just kind of being aware of that. Cramps is another thing. When you get a cramp, that's at a point where, okay, now you definitely need the water in your system, in your body. So maybe knowing that if you're going to be playing a sport, or if you are working outside, for construction workers and other people that work outside, before you even get to that point, start hydrating yourself. Be inside under a shade, for the hottest part of the day, and wear clothing that is light so that it's breathable. So those are some things to look for.
Are there any other resources if people want to read more about warning symptoms and other things related to heat emergencies?
Residents can visit our website at protectdupage.org. And as I've mentioned, some of the graphic, the resources that I've got here, those are also available on our website. We share them via our Facebook and Twitter pages, but residents who don't have access to social media or who don't use social media, they can still get the same information on our website. So again, it's protectdupage.org.
Well, I appreciate you going over some of these things, and we'll be ready for the summer.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sabit Abbasi with the DuPage County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. In the summer, there are a number of different illnesses that can happen that are pertaining to heat illnesses, especially with temperatures rising. And so please visit our website at protectdupage.org to learn of the different heat illnesses that can happen and some of the steps you can take to be better prepared.